envelop more of real space. And this is not to mention, of course, the reawakening of the Necrons, who appear to be on the verge of fully realizing their return to the galaxy, and the ever-threatening tendrils of the Tyranid menace. The Emperor, in his holy wisdom, while having of course faith in his Astartes that they would protect humanity, foresaw the need to create what is presumed to be something of a failsafe, and it is one of the most closely guarded secrets in the Imperium. And this is because it would be reasonable to say that it is likely that no one in the Imperium actually knows the true details of this secret, for it is known as the Terminus Decree. Now, on the one hand, thankfully mentions of the Terminus Decree are actually extremely minimal, which makes it easier to track down information about it because there is so very little of it. It's mentioned only in 3 Grey Knights Codex, and beyond that you can only forge speculative links to very small mentions in other books which may or may not be related to it. The Terminus Decree is simply a piece of parchment that is said to contain critical instructions given by the Emperor himself and sealed in an ancient lockbox. Its location is only known to the Grey Knights within their secret chambers on Terra, although it is rumoured to be the tomb of the Emperor's closest aide Malcador the Sigillite. And it was also said that only a Supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights was bestowed with the knowledge of how to open it, because the box is locked by a golden seal. Interestingly enough, this matches exactly another golden seal found in only one other known location in the Imperium, the Golden Throne of the Emperor. It is said that the Terminus Decree must only be opened when all hope for humanity appears lost, and it is speculated that should this situation ever arise which will compel a Grey Knight Grand Master to unlock the box, the instructions contained within will enable some event of such a magnitude that they may hold the key to humanity's salvation, or for all we know, its complete destruction. It has been widely speculated that the Terminus Decree contains orders to kill the Emperor sitting atop of his golden throne, and thereby releasing him from his psychic prison and allowing his subsequent rebirth. It is then assumed that he would of course become the salvation for humanity. Depending on which school of inquisitional thought you may subscribe to, you may know that many believe the Emperor does not exist anymore within the Golden Throne, and that the psychic sacrifices are there simply to power it as well as keeping the Astronomicon fueled. But the Emperor himself has already departed his physical body and now exists only within the warp, waiting to be reborn. Now, until recently, the Terminus Decree was considered to be an absolute last resort. Given though the dire state of affairs the Imperium has found itself in during the final days of M41, the prospect of using this potentially destructive force has now been given serious consideration. And this has been attributed to the technically current Supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights, one Kaldor Drago. Now, Drago became the current Supreme Grand Master when the Demon Primarch Mortarion of the Death Guard Legion killed the former. Drago was able to banish Mortarion into the warp by speaking his true name. Now, just to note, a demon's true name is different to those who were formerly mortals. A demon's true name will bind it to those who have spoken its name, and this will confuse and disorientate the demon, allowing them to be more easily banished back into the warp. For former mortals such as Chaos Marines or Demon Primarchs, speaking their original mortal name appears to function in much the same way. Uriel Ventress of the Ultramarines was able to also weaken a demon prince in this manner. Unfortunately, Supreme Grandmaster Drago ended up becoming lost and trapped within the warp itself, and it is said that he was now condemned to walk in the formless wastes of eternity. Being a Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights though, Drago would not waste this time, and despite being alone and continually assailed by chaotic entities, he was able to slay greater demons and lay waste to their fortresses within the warp. A huge testament to the devastating power and uncorruptibility of the Grey Knights. However, after the Great Rift had torn itself through the galaxy, Drago discovered he was somehow able to return into sections of the Materium for periods of time. In this time, it is said that he would then appear to each of the current Grandmasters of the Grey Knights and would impart onto them the knowledge of how to open the Terminus Decree, and that also it may be time to consider its use. So what is contained within the knowledge of the Terminus Decree? it is impossible to say with certainty. The only thing that we can be near to certain of is that it will enable an event of potentially cataclysmic change. We can speculate that because of its nature, in that it is only to be used when facing the darkest of times, its instructions are likely highly specific. It seems to me that Drago is actually being a little bit hasty, because it is true that the Imperium is facing dark times, darker than it has for millennia. But at the same time, we have seen the return of one of the Emperor's Primarchs, something few thought they would ever live to see again, not to mention the rise of the Primaris and various other new developments like mad scientist Call turning out new tech faster than anyone thought ever possible. Call is even, in my opinion, leaning towards raising contentious possibilities like reapproaching the concepts of technological exploration, and that this could become a new dawn of an age of humanity more in line with what the Emperor had originally wanted, that is to say, a society based on science and learning. Although that obviously conflicts somewhat with both the Mechanicus hardline and the Ecclesiarchy. So the beginning of M42 are contentious times, but the absolute darkest of days that warrant using the Terminus Decree, that's debatable. Of course, it would certainly help matters if we thought that Supreme Grandmaster Drago had any concept of just what the Terminus Decree contained, but there is no evidence of that either. So despite having no evidence of what it truly contains, when you run through the possibilities of what it could say, you find yourself coming back to the possibility of somehow removing the Emperor, or his complete death, to enable him to then be reborn again and again, because really, what else could you do within the Imperium to instigate any very major defense protocol that would save it other than this? Now, as I've noted a few times recently, it brings us to thinking about the differing ideologies of the Inquisition that I recently covered, and how some within the Inquisition consider that the Emperor has already long since left his mortal shell, now exists already on the spiritual plane of the warp, awaiting a suitable vessel to inhabit. On the other hand, knowing the Emperor is a perpetual, similar to the Primarch Vulcan, it seems more likely that the Emperor might simply manifest. As I noted again previously, the concept of what it means to be a perpetual is somewhat poorly defined in the 40k verse, and it is even less well defined the means by which they are seemingly reconstituted, for want of a better verb. Now, I should note that there are some significant spoilers to the novel Old Earth involving the resolution of Vulcan's journey from here on, so be advised. However, we do have some descriptions about Perpetual's regeneration in the Primarch Vulcan, when he was continually tortured by Conrad Kurz, traitor Primarch of the Night Lords. Now, Kurz personally cut off Vulcan's head, ripped out his throat, stabbed him through the chest, tore him limb from limb. Separately, he had Vulcan eviscerated, shot with hundreds of bolters at close range, left in the vent shaft of a starship engine, and even thrown into empty space naked. Now, each time Vulcan died, his body would regenerate completely, leaving Kurz absolutely furious. Vulcan was finally able to escape by teleporting himself to Macragge, or at least its upper atmosphere, although he then became burned to a charred corpse by re-entering the atmosphere. Over a series of days, Vulcan's body again began to regenerate, eventually returning him to life. Now, until this time, Vulcan had not fully understood his powers, but finally having realized them when he would fight Kurz again, he was able to use his powers of regeneration when he focused mentally upon this. And so he was even able to regenerate from decapitation actively, extremely quickly, and so he was able to continue fighting. This is where the complex figure, though, of John Grammaticus enters the fray. Now, John Grammaticus is a very difficult figure to explain in short. But simply put, he is another human perpetual who was part of what would be called the Cabal, and this was the curious Cabal which is sometimes mentioned that sought the total destruction of chaos, and I will likely have to cover this, probably soon enough. The Cabal really believed its goal was the complete destruction of chaos by any means necessary. They believed it to be the most damaging thing, and so they thought that by allowing Horus to be victorious, that this would actually enable the destruction of chaos, because they believed that once humanity itself was totally destroyed as a result, then this would ultimately also lead to the destruction of chaos, because once humanity is out of the way, there's nothing left to feed chaos and it should kind of burn itself out. Ulthran of the Eldar would speak to John Grammaticus and explain to him that this was not so, or it was not certain, that this would likely not lead to only the destruction of humanity, but likely also the fall of the entire galaxy. Grammaticus would not kill Vulcan, but through a series of events he would end up in a deep coma, As I say, there is a lot more to this story and the story of John Grammaticus, but that's for another day. Recently, via Saturnine, we learn a great deal more about the Perpetuals. However, there is an undercurrent running throughout the book which is all about lies and false remembrance of history. So although there are things which on face value seem devastating and being great revelations, I felt in Saturnine it's important not to lean too heavily on individual accounts from characters. With that said, it does give us a potentially further reinforcement about the Emperor's perspective and goals. Additionally, depending on how you might want to choose to interpret it in the bigger picture, and I don't want to get too heavily into this right now, but it is noted how the Emperor will again and again appear to lie and deal with matters in an extremely arrogant, ends justifying the means approach, and we've seen this with him right from the very beginning. In False Gods and so on, it sadly adds weight to this overall picture that the Emperor is far more disturbing than the holier-than-thou image painted by his most fanatical worshippers. Also, dependent on your perspective, we've seen the Emperor make repeated misjudgments, or on the other side of the coin, you might want to take these as being carefully disguised actions that are still part of some grand master plan, but generally many of his judgments appear to actually undermine his credibility as an all-knowing being, who is instead led primarily by his own self-righteous arrogance, and we know that he doesn't know everything. He even says this himself. A lot of what we have learned regarding the Emperor continues to support actually my view that he was, as we already know, always present throughout humanity's history and likely had some influence, but that it wasn't until the catastrophic failure of the Golden Age and the Dark Age of technology, and we don't know how much he pushed that as well. I've sometimes thought whether the Golden Age or the Dark Age of technology was in fact actually some effort by the Emperor to push forward and achieve what he had tried to achieve with the Imperium, and maybe this was his first failed experiment. But that after the Age of Strife happened, the Emperor decided basically enough was enough, and he would dispense with any sense of subtlety and take full and total control of things. This is of course obvious and clear for all to see, but what's less known is to just what ends the Emperor would go in order to achieve this. Saturnine lays out some of this, but there are clues for us all throughout the reference material. I think perhaps most notably in Dark Imperium, which contained a lot of suggestion about doubt and perception around the Emperor. For example, Gulliman has several realizations about the truth of the Emperor having returned back to a very different Imperium than the one he remembered in the aftermath of the heresy. It's all shrouded still in vague interpretations, but you get the impression that the Emperor is far from what he presented himself as to others, and that leaves worrying questions about his motivations, and we'll talk about this more as well. Some of the revelations that we've seen there about Perpetuals that, as I say, would probably be more appropriate to talk about separately, it gives us this sense that the Emperor was so singularly focused on achieving his end goal that he would do almost anything and sacrifice anything in order to achieve them. I've come to think that potentially, if he thought this could not be achieved, then he was prepared to in fact end everything. The fact that the Emperor thought if Horus took Terra, then all was lost. You can interpret this in several ways. Do you assume that by this he meant that humanity would be lost, or was it more that his own personal goals would be crushed? Again, when he speaks to Vulcan about this, on the face of it, you assume that the Emperor is lamenting the potential destruction of humanity. But what if it was simply the crushing of his own ambitions? Now, as for Vulcan, he would recover, and using a talisman he had apparently forged but had no memory of doing so, would travel to Terra via the webway. And this talisman acted as a compass for him to navigate through the vast maze of space between space corridors. This journey would be extremely difficult, involving many battles with demons and enemies, but finally Ulthran of the Eldar would greet Vulcan and guide him not through the webway portal of the throne room, as the Emperor had sealed this, but to the outside gates of the Imperial Palace, and here Vulcan was taken by Custodes to meet with the Emperor himself. And this is where the Emperor revealed that it was he himself who had been guiding Vulcan back to Terra, and that it was in fact even his will that had sparked Vulcan to create his great Thunder Hammer and also the talisman known as the Talisman of the Seven Hammers. Now, the Emperor explained how this had been Vulcan's true purpose, to forge the talisman and oversee its installation into the Golden Throne. Now, for those who are unaware, behind the Golden Throne on Terra lies the entrance to the Emperor's webway portal, and ever since the heresy, it has contained, as Malcador described it, it is hell. Hell given form. Essentially, demons assaulted it and have been trying to break through ever since the heresy. Now, once Vulcan installed the talisman into the Golden Throne, it became permanently locked in and now would trigger should the Golden Throne ever fail. Now, many assume that it is this which is connected to the Terminus Decree, this talisman. For one thing, it takes the form of a golden seal, which sounds very similar to the seal which locks the box containing the decree. Could these two things somehow be linked? That perhaps one golden seal could trigger the other? This is perhaps one of the most popular theories, and the reason for that is likely because it involves the potential for the Emperor's rebirth, which is why I wanted to lay out the whole how and why the talisman eventually reached the Golden Throne, as well as the perpetual nature of Vulcan, to understand that theoretically the Emperor should be equally capable of regenerating himself, and quickly. Now, there are many theories as to why the Emperor couldn't regenerate so easily. Some said that he had had to purge himself of all of his love and goodness in order to be able to kill Horus, and that by doing this it somehow limited his abilities. There are others who just say, well, when he was fighting Horus, he was really fighting all of the Chaos Gods, and so he received such a devastating wound that this is why he is unable to regenerate from it, and therefore he probably needs to be killed to be able to be properly reborn, and that he wouldn't be able to just regenerate. On the other hand, it could simply be that being atop of the Golden Throne is leeching so much of his power and energy, because we know it takes a gigantic amount of focus and force to keep the webway portal closed behind the Golden Throne, not to mention of course also being involved in the Astronomicon. But all of this again is extremely speculative. Now, to be clear as well, the description of the Terminus Decree states that the exact nature of the document is unknown, and the only clue to its contents lies in the box's golden seal, found only in one place in all the Imperium's scattered worlds, the Emperor's Golden Throne. So this talisman theory remains a possibility, but I find myself not completely buying it, and here's why. For one thing, it seems way too obvious, and for the other simple reason, it just also makes little sense, and that actually seems fairly obvious to me if you think it all the way through. For starters, why wouldn't the Emperor have imparted this knowledge to other loyalist Primarchs? I suppose arguably the Grey Knights are meant to be considerably purer, more trustworthy even than their Primarchs, especially against the forces of chaos, which the Emperor was extremely worried about towards the end of the heresy. Yet the Emperor was basically interred before he saw the Grey Knights project come to fruition, so how could he know that that was definitely going to be successful? Or that there couldn't be some other disastrous situation much further down the line? Another thing for me is that Vulcan's talisman seemed very specifically designed for use during a very short period at the end of the heresy, when the Emperor was uncertain how things would end. He wanted that brought because he wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen, and he wanted a failsafe. So I think it's quite a stretch to imagine that then written on the Terminus Decree would be instructions to trigger that, because, oh no, now you've destroyed Terra and the Astronomicon. So now the Imperium are really screwed, and it's not that apparent how it would help anything at all, apart from, of course, yes, killing the Emperor. Now, the only reason you could argue for the Grey Knights to trigger the activation of the talisman would be that it destroys not only the Emperor, incinerating him, but also the whole of Terra, and then presumably the demons as they try to breach the newly opened web portal, which also it would be assumed would be destroyed thereafter. So in doing so, this would enable the Emperor to, we presume, reappear, as he would be able to as a perpetual, we assume, because even Vulcan was able to appear after apparently being vaporized.
Finish the stream.
So the Emperor returning would of course be a huge gain for the Imperium. It would however come at the sacrifice of Terra and all the knowledge and bureaucratic necessities that are held there, not to mention the vast amounts of arcane tech, including very likely some extremely valuable items held by the Emperor. His entire laboratory works and all manner of things are there. We know the Mechanicus took a lot of things to Mars, but there are undoubtedly prizes beyond imagination still held on and below Terra itself. And then all of this still doesn't address the much bigger problem that would arise, which is that prior to the Astronomicon being constructed, space travel was significantly limited. So if the Grey Knights trigger this talisman and it does destroy everything on Terra, including, we presume, the Astronomicon, this would absolutely cripple the Imperium. It wouldn't help it at all, cutting off any movement of Imperial forces, supplies, and the majority of communications. The Imperium has survived breaks in the Astronomicon before now. It did when the huge warp tear occurred through the galaxy recently, but this would likely be far worse than that, far bigger of a problem. The Emperor constructed the Astronomicon around M30, and at the time it was the single biggest structure on Terra, so to build it he had to draft much of the planet's entire population. so this is not something that they could quickly reconstruct, especially given the fact Terra would have now been turned to ashes, not to mention would they even know how to do it. So even if the Emperor were to reappear in a relatively short period of time, and also he may not require some purest of pure holy vessel to do so, he might just coalesce somewhere. But ultimately, it's not immediately clear how this would solve or improve the bigger issue or bigger problem. Plus, it also somewhat asks the question, if the key thing you want to achieve here is the death of the Emperor so he can be reborn, why not just have the Terminus Decree say that? It's certainly questionable if the Custodes would allow it, but surely if that's what you're wanting to achieve, instructions to that end are going to be preferable to incinerating the planet and destroying the Astronomicon. I mean, you would hope that the Grey Knights by now, they're full force, they would be able to keep the gateway in their throne room contained, at least until the Emperor returned, and could probably contain the situation by either sitting again upon the throne or devising some other way around the problem. Either way, it seems like if you're wanting to achieve the death of the Emperor, you could do that without having to destroy the entire planet. The Emperor ultimately took humanity down a path of his own making, not of its own natural development, and given the devastation he unleashed on the galaxy, who knows what horror is contained within the Terminus Decree, a final order written by a being willing to achieve his goals by any means necessary, even if it means the extinction of planets, the slaughter of billions, and experiments that defy all levels of moral and ethical sensibility. What would such a being deem appropriate as a final terminal decree? Now, the Emperor being given some form of death to enable his rebirth is the most popular of theories, and for good reason. It has some reasonable lore weight behind it in the descriptions. But this is also partly what kind of irks me, because in truth, we have no way of knowing what the Terminus Decree dictates. So I find the link between Vulcan's golden talisman and this seal on the supposed box to be reasonably spurious. However, it is hard to ignore the fact that it specifically states that this seal is only found on one other place, the Golden Throne. Except couldn't we read this as simply meaning it relates to an order of the Emperor and not necessarily being very specifically linked to Vulcan's talisman? But even if
This is an emergency alert. It's the end of the world and we're all fucked! I love this thing. My friend, you just helped me tap into the emergency broadcast system for the whole region. This is gonna be so much fun! But enough small talk. Full disclosure, I didn't think you'd succeed at getting my signal working. So I was just gonna kill you and take your stuff when you came back. If you came back at all, that is. Guess it'd be a real dick move for me to do that now. Look, I'm what you people would call a raider. Killing, stealing, and cheating is kind of my shtick. And thanks to you, I've got a working radio. So I can reach other like-minded individuals and get them to join me. You've opened the floodgates. Hey, come see me at the top of the world when you get the chance. I've got something for ya, and I pinky swear I won't kill ya.
Pinky swear. 5 minutes? What do you mean? Five minutes. Oh, you post some link or something? I'm not sure why. Maybe it bots. Laminka? What is Laminka? Lamonka. Ah! So why did you got timed out? I didn't see any message, anything. I will keep open Twitch dashboard just in case. Maybe this chat is enough. Okay, maybe now I will see what will happen. What's up, Z? What is this fucking code? VSLD key fizz what the fuck? Is some kind of code? When? What do you mean? I just opened my dashboard, that's it, here. Just to see all the Twitch messages. Because I just restarted my PCs, I didn't switched on this app. I use this only for sound notifications if someone's entering chat or whatever. Nothing important, don't worry.
Oh, I see now. You're here about that guy, huh? Well, good luck getting anything out of him. He's been dead a while.
Super fun. I'm using, but I just didn't kept open at the moment. I'm using 2 computers now, not 2 monitors. Because I cannot play on full resolution on the same PC while streaming. Is my video lagging or something? I switched to 1080p. It's not trash. When I will get this Mon 380, and then will be maybe second monitor. I'm not sure if I need 2 monitors anymore. U6, what the fuck? EVE Online players usually have multiple EVE Online PC setup. I don't want it to. Oh, this guy.
Well, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and welcome.
I think this was the most famous EVE Online player. Yeah, that is enough. But these monitors, holy shit, are thick. It's 4 years old. What tablet? Table? Ah, table. Fuck that. Right now I'm standing. I like it a lot. Ah, Madigan found something. A game changer. What is it?
Who knows what goes through their dopey responder brains? Can you imagine going through life 100% chem-free? Anyway, you're probably looking for that scorch detector uplink thingamajig he was trying to install when they caught him. Seems real handy. I know.
Yeah, I will get it this month. At the end of the month. I was thinking about 390, but I don't want to spend that much money anymore. For single monitor. Maybe 2 monitors. Maybe next year I will get 390. Some variation. So what I need to do now?
Well, this is a little awkward. Not what either one of us expected, eh? Anyway, to prove I'm
390 you need if you use dual screen 4K or whatever, because my screen is 4K. But I'm not using 4K at the moment. So is this done? Quest completed. Flavors of Mayhem. Speed throws. Okay, let's speak throws.
Still hanging around, huh? Alright, spit it out. I may have all day, but you're...
It's totally affordable. This generation is very nice. Decent prices. Powerful. Maybe it seems powerful because last gen was not so good with performance. Yeah, 370 is already faster than 2080 titanium.
Like there was any doubt. Ooh, I thought you might notice them. That group you're talking about, if you want to talk to... I thought you never asked. First, a peace offering. David had a trophy as a symbol of his leadership. You get that into Meg's hands, it's like passing the torch. Next, I'm gonna draw her ass out here with an extra special prize. Problem is, I need to access some old memory banks that David sealed off. He was an emotional guy. I get it. Yeah, about that. David sort of didn't want anyone to know about the memorial. He thought the others would think he'd gone soft. So, hope you gotta get to David. I ain't saying easy peasy, right?
Yeah, 390 is expensive, but it can run 4K basically. That's decent frame rates. But a few years ago I would spend that much money for that shit. But now I don't think so.
I'll be keeping an eye on you from up here. I can see just about anything with my robot tap into the emergency broadcast system, you can hear my lovely voice from anywhere.
Oh, I need to get rid of my shit. Okay, weapons. Combat shotgun. Rent? You asked about my rent. I pay for. I'm renting house, like typical English shitty house. So it costs like £500 a month. We split in half with my friend. What wife? I will get a puppy. At least you can eat puppy later on. What the fuck is this? Guitar sword? Belly dances? Why I need belly dances if I can dance myself in front of a mirror? You see my picture, boy? Just shaking those bags of lard. Holy shit, serious inventory management in this game is just terrible. I am thirsty. Item 8. Syrup. Fungus soup. Let's do this. Again, this. Why did I removed? Consoles always have been downgrade version of PCs, like since ages. It does not really matter much because I've never played console for the graphics or anything, it's because of the games. I had PlayStation 3, I had PlayStation 2, I had PlayStation 4, I have PlayStation Vita. Fuck, seems like I'm PlayStation fanboy. This desk is well worn and has several drivers that hold a clue about where the moon is located on Leaf. Siege desk perception. Closely examine the drivers. Again? Do I need to go to here again?
You got David's trophy? Pretty cool, right? Once Meg sees that, she's gonna know we mean business. She may have been a diehard, but they all started under David. Every single one of them. Even the Gourmands would have killed for that trophy. Those cutthroats had all the power and they knew it. That trophy is the biggest symbol of them all. Nice to see it still in one piece. Hope we can say the same for Rosalind's memorial in that AI program.
Yeah, but that is like 4 times more expensive than Xbox. And consoles like Xbox or PS4 has like different ecosystem. All games are basically supposedly optimized better and so on. Maybe less for Xbox because Xbox and Windows 10 are basically the same, so I never brought Xbox because I never got any interesting game on their list. Not even a single time. It's not trash, it's just another console, that's it. Yeah, mostly yeah. If you have PC, you basically have all Xbox games.
the old bands of raiders each had their own, like, pet projects or whatever, you know, to be all special. If I'm ever going to rebuild a raider army, I need to figure out which of these crazy tactics actually work. We both win.
I want
get
this bottle
answers,
as a
and you get
fucking
an
pet.
box full of
Looks cool.
scary things you can use to terrify your enemies and gross out your friends.
Bet she's annoying.
We'll start with my personal favorite, Karma. No, not that new age bullshit. I'm talking about a chem that hits hard but leaves you reeling.
I remember even wanted to buy something from Nintendo, like Switch or whatever. But I had the impression that all the games they have is only Mario and Zelda, Mario and Zelda. Nothing different.
Or I'll find you and kill ya.
Because they look like comfortable
Not joking.
consoles.
I really will.
Did they level up now? Maybe next year. What is this? Distinguished guest. Easy 6 minutes ago. Type collection. Join event. Let's see what this event about. I never play shooters on console. $8 gigs? Oh, I mean titanium 8 gigs. 8 gigs of RAM? What the fuck? How can you have 8 gigs of RAM and funds? Are you trolling or something? It makes no sense. Really? RAMs are not expensive. But you brought 1660 titanium. Is it even... Ah, it's cheap. Never mind. It's very cheap. But DDR4 are not expensive. You don't need the best DDR sticks. Best value. Of course, they show the fucking RGB bullshit. 54 pounds. How many gigs? 16 gigabits, 50 pounds. That is good enough. Because 16 gigabits is not enough for me now. My apps keep crashing. I was thinking why my apps keep crashing. Games, Chrome, everything. Because I like to keep my Chrome open with like 10 tabs, playing the game at the same time, and they crash because I run out of memory. Unless you live in Brazil or in Australia, then yeah. And now that they have like massive taxes for everything. Poor bastards. What the fuck? These straps work. Whoa, 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 whoa. They can open doors. Who is shooting? Who is shooting me? What the fuck? Oh, you, oh, no, not you.
Yes. Not us.
So what I need to do?
Hello there.
Bam, 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 bam.
Good day to you.
An retrieve AI program.
Return.
So I completed?
Here. See?
Oh, you bitch! Sweet dreams to you. I like these sounds. Just fucking random sounds. So how do I get on the roof from outside, I guess? Yep, probably from outside. But there's no point to do anything here.
Found.
Retrieve AI program, it is shit. Fuck, so far away.
Hello there.
I need to craft something for him. I should go sleep soon as well. I still have 2 days off left. What she wants to modify? Syringe?
Now that you've got yourself some karma, it's time to see it in action. There's a mean old Mama Yaogwai I like to call. Actually, strike that. I lost track of her a while back, so just make it so there's one less Yaogwai to worry about. I don't care which one. If you can't find a Yaogwai, find something else that's tough so you can see the karma in action. I know, it sounds crazy to make a beast like that tougher and nastier, but once karma wears off, it'll be as weak as a newborn kitten. That's when you finish it off, assuming you survive the initial effects. Have fun!
What the hell? That is my crossbow. Oh, this one. Shoot a Yao Guai with karma syringe. Yeah, I guess it'll be fun. Should I need to repair anything? Definitely. Guess what? I have no more materials. It's gonna be fun. With the karma syringe. Oh. Made of gold? What? What? What the fuck? Ammo, нет ammo. UK government supply requisition. Okay. Oh, he's already left. He was tired. He needs some cuddles. You can Google them. They look almost all the same. Old and shitty. What the fuck? They are so fucking fast. Fucking annoying. Nice sniper. What the fuck? Mounted houses? I don't know now. They have no wood houses. Red brick houses. So, where is this creature? Wow, so a lot of goals. It's peasant. So it's like peasant houses. Kurva, what the fuck? Oh my god.
Wow, really? You wasted your karma dart on something you could have sneezed at and killed? Maybe next time you'll grow a spine and face something actually challenging.
Wrong gun.
Kill it and let's move on. The less said, the better. Fortune-wise, that karma stuff can backfire on you if you're not careful. And take it from me, you don't want to use it on yourself. Unless, you're really confident you can kill everything around you before it wears off. Okay, next we've got explosions. The trappers would rig up bait with explosives to take on some of the more dangerous game out there. I want you to go make some explosive bait and don't blow your fingers off in the process. You're not a robot like me. No replacement hands for you.
These quests are getting really annoying. There's some mission to kill these ghouls. Oh shit, bitch.
Is that the best you can do? Time to hit the showers.
White Spring is under our protection.
All clear. Perimeter secure. Stand down, soldier. You're at the White Spring. Pardon me.
Sensor alert. Dial down. Sir. Attention! Sir! Arms and armament awaiting inspection, sir! Historian, sir, we have sabers, swords, muskets, rifles.
Guest security is our priority. Welcome. May I interest you in our fine art and decor? May I be of assistance? Today's security status is red. Please take appropriate precautions.
Always a pleasure to see a guest.
I don't know. It's a fucking hell. Is anyone actually reading all this information when playing? I guess some people do. It's no safe control, really. Very sad face.
Enjoy your stay.
All clear. This sector is secure.
If there was some idea about Golden Seal on the Emperor's throne, I think what's more possible is that when the piece about the Terminus Decree was first described, it couldn't have possibly known how things were then going to be described 7 years later in Old Earth, and so perhaps this is why the two things I think don't
Shit.
Guest security is our priority.
Well, to make the result look its best.
Sir?
Today's security status is red.
Warhammer 40,000 is a dark, confusing, and often terrifying universe. It's a world where what we do know is vastly eclipsed by everything that we don't. Mankind has to a large extent abandoned any hope of regaining its former glorious knowledge, but things were not always as they are now. The 40k of many years ago is not the 40k that we know now. In fact, first edition leading into second edition was far more confusing than anything we have now. Entire races were rewritten multiple times in the space of only a few years. Some would be fleshed out and then remain stagnant for the next 30 years. This is Luton and welcome back for another 10 Things episode. Warhammer 40,000 has progressed through many editions since its original launch back in the late 1980s. Each progressive edition would bring sparse new details and usually omit far more that had been in previous editions. It seems that the makers of 40k believed in keeping the pleb masses in blissful ignorance just as much as the Imperium of Man. Likely for similar reasons as well, because the less your citizens know, the less questions they'll ask, and the less you have to explain. So across the decades, this has led to lots of debate and arguing. We will often see people referring to things in first edition as being an origin and therefore automatically definitive and canon, and that's not really the case. The thinking for this though does seem straightforward enough, and that's mainly because first edition simply contains far more descriptive language than most editions that would follow. And because of that, it's often assumed that because there is just simply more detail, that this must be the more canon material. Except that this is not good thinking, especially when you consider the style and abrupt rewrites of material with first edition that were very different to what would come later. In fact, between the initial release of first edition and its supplements up until just before the release of second edition, a vast amount of information changed. Not small corrections, entire retcons of races in 40k, and others that were just abandoned. Not to mention how drastically the miniatures themselves changed. This extremely fast development in the early period for me personally underscores why second edition was really the true origin of 40k that would shape the game that we would know now. It's true that first edition was a seminal foundational experiment, but it would be instantly built upon and strategically thinned down to keep what worked best. So whilst first edition gave birth to 40k, it was second edition that defined it. I think the reason you often see people refer to things from first edition as being definitive is, like I say, the simple reason that it contains a lot of information that you don't see anywhere else. But I always think that as second edition came along, it should be a pretty big clue that they decided to sideline a lot of that detail almost instantly, and then later it would be easy to just omit, but not necessarily to retcon, because that always keeps the door open. Just because of the way in which first edition developed and how quickly it happened is a good reason why you should see it with more skepticism than any other edition that followed. And because of this, including much of what was written in the other books like Realms of Chaos, they're so old now that they should really be treated with with a healthy amount of caution. Now, not disregarding them to be sure, but definitely viewed in the proper context. But with that said, there are of course plenty of details and narratives that were laid down in first edition that carry through and become entrenched as the bedrock of 40k. But I've talked before about how I like to view and treat information from the lore across the various periods, and unless something has been restated multiple times in subsequent editions, you should definitely lean in on discarding it as unreliable, but at the same time not disregarding it completely. Which then nicely brings us to our topic for today, because as much as there is a lot of solid material that will be carried forward, there is a joyful amount of strange oddities and just plain weird things in first edition. Some of this stuff is very much related to the tabletop game, and some of it's just very comical. Other ideas are actually pretty awesome. For example, as well, the artwork for first edition is also beautifully of its time. 40k first edition resembles something much more like pen and ink Judge Dredd than it does the high-end digital concept art that we see today. This is obviously, like I say, reflective of the time and what other artists were inspired by around this period, but much of it really gives you pause to consider it and how it's representing the world of 40k. One thing I'm often especially interested in is how the Space Marines are illustrated with far more human and emotive expressions, whereas the Astartes of today all too often look like they're straight out of Starship Troopers. Anyway, this idea of the stylistic change in 40k is probably something I can recycle and expand upon later with some more specific thoughts. So let's look at some of the weirdness and strange things from first edition. Now, first edition was significantly more fleshed out when it came to Xenos, and we're talking about proper, non-specific Xenos, not just things which aren't human. Instead of the token gestures we've seen that might expand a little beyond the rules for a couple of extra things that are beyond the core, like maybe the amble, for example, first edition 40k had rules for Xenos like warp creatures such as astral hounds, spectres, enslavers, also generic warp entities, Xenos like the Psychounion, or however you pronounce it, vampires, zombies, carnivorous sand clams, the Katashan devil and face eaters, which are well known even now, but no real specific rules for these things, crawlers, crotalis, Cathalan cudbears, dinosaurs, the Ferrobeast, gene stealers, giant insects, giant spiders,
doing
rocks,
both.
grinks.
I'm listening to YouTube. Okay, I want to get the fuck out of here. So, next location is... I brought this game as a pre-order long time ago, but it was such a piece of shit at that moment that I just forgot about it. Few people that I know started playing it, and I started playing as well. For a few days I got hooked. At least for now. Some quests just piss me off. User interface piss me off. Inventory management piss me off. Building system is sometimes as well, so I'm not sure. I think I will just... my patience will run out soon enough. Why do I need to think about purchase again? Why? I never do like this. It's very complicated. I like it and I don't like it at the same time. It's average game. I feel like it is the same as all the Fallouts before, but what it lacks the most important thing in Fallout is mods. Because what Bethesda is not able to fix, people fix. So if there was online game Fallout 4, I will just ditch this for that game. Because community always makes things better. Okay, next. Let's check the next shitty quest. As for buying it again, I'm basically buying it again. I brought this subscription model. There are no in-game mods in this one, in Fallout 76. Only in Fallout 4. But Fallout 4 has no multiplayer or anything like that. Same as Skyrim. I think Skyrim someone started or maybe already did. But I stopped playing Skyrim for like 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. It is nice to have co-op if there are good encounters. This game has like some bosses and so on. Oh, you're already here. Jesus. Death taboo. You can open doors anyway. So what I need to do here? Emergency relay terminal. For what? Game Banana, I heard it long time ago. I was using Nexus. Not Gamer's Nexus, but some Nexus. Fallout 76 has no mods, it's multiplayer, it's MMO. There are no mods for this game. Okay, so what I need to do here? I need to upload US government supply oh! So that is what it is. And it will drop in some shithole here. Yeah, this game has its quirks. Problem is, it is made on the same engine as Fallout 4 and probably Fallout 3. Outdated, broken. I just teleported here. I just could teleport here. It was rushed out. It was stupidly rushed out. You never seen news about this game before? When it was released? Jesus. Fuck! Oh, shit. Oh my god, this is, I think. Are you stuck? The piece of shit. There we go. Some bugs. Not these. Oh, my guns are broken. Take it and take me. Easy. Easy legendary kill. Fucking hell, so many bugs. Come on, let me put it. I don't know. What the fuck? Oh, it's mini nuke. I found the one to use it. What is I? I'm too low level, of course. Of course. Drill. Yeah, I think I need to take a break. I think this game needs to take a break. Or it gets very annoying. And I'm going to sleep then. Thanks for stopping by. See you later.